you not look?
That's the cushions there.
Yeah, okay. Hi, welcome to the Bench Movie Club. I'm Charlie.
I'm Ben.
And in this special Christmas episode, we are talking about the Christmas classic Gremlins from 1984, directed by Joe Dante, who also done Inner Space, Explorers, which you mentioned the other week, with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
And he also done one of the segments in the Twilight Zone movie.
Which one?
A Good Life. I think that's the one where it's got the little boy who everyone's scared of.
And who takes his sister's mouth away.
Yeah.
And he puts his other sister into the cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true. Because that was what John Landis was done one and Spielberg done one, yeah. It was written by Chris Columbus. It was one of the first things he done. He also wrote Goonies, Young Sherlock Holmes, Only the Lonely.
That's the best one out of that then is obviously... What did you just say?
Well, I said Goonies.
Goonies, yeah. That's probably his best.
Yeah, Gremlins is good as well.
The only thing I remember with that Young Sherlock Holmes is that when all the cakes come alive.
Yeah, that's good, Young Sherlock Holmes.
I can't remember it. I remember the cake part.
Well, we'll do Young Sherlock Holmes on the podcast.
No, you could do that with something else.
But it was produced by Amblin, which one of their first productions, which so it's produced by Steven Spielberg, Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy. So Spielberg came across the script, like at the time obviously he was the biggest director in the world, he probably still is, and one of the scripts had Gremlins on it and he read it and he loved it, so then he contacted Chris Columbus and he thought it was a joke. You know, someone phoning up saying, "Oh, this is Steven Spielberg." He's like, "Yeah, right, whatever." I said, "No, I love your script, I really want to make it." So he produced it and he got Joe Dante to direct it. It stars Zach Galligan, who obviously was also in Gremlins 2. He was in Waxwork as well, 1 and 2.
I remember Waxwork. This
was his theatrical debut.
He didn't do much after these films. I don't think he...
He didn't really... Well, it's all the luck of the draw, isn't it? You pick films, sometimes you're given a script and you go, "Oh, this sounds good. I'm going to make this." And nothing comes of them.
Yeah, I just remember him from this and Waxwork, which I don't think was much later. I think it was about 87. 86, 87. It was all sort of quite close to each other because he looks roughly the same in it.
But he beat out for this role. Who else auditioned was Kevin Bacon,
yeah,
Ralph Macchio, and your favourite actor, Tom Hanks.
And also Emilio Estevez, I think, was fought for this role. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they'll probably all been good.
But he's good in it. I like. He fits it really well, and he goes really well with Phoebe Cates as well.
Yeah, I think they'd picked her before they'd picked Billy.
Yeah, he suits her better, I think, out of all the others.
Yeah, and during the audition when he was with her, and in between time before they was doing the takes, he just sort of rested his head on her as if like. Oh, he was like really happy he was getting on with her, and the producers see that and went, "Oh, look, he's falling in love with her already. Yeah, he's right for the role." So it's just that little thing laying in his head on her. Phoebe Cates, as you mentioned, was also in Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Drop Dead Fred.
Yes.
And is now married to Kevin Kline.
Yeah,
and that's been for a very long time.
Yeah, she's got a few kids as well with him.
Yeah.
They stay out in the public eye really, though, don't they? You don't really sort of see anything of them. So
No.
Some celebrities do manage to sort of stay away from the tabloids.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's nice when you find out about relationships which have longevity.
Mm.
You know.
It's rare in Hollywood. Very rare.
His mum is played by Frances Lee McCain. She was also in Back to the Future. She was Stella Baines.
She was, yeah, so she was Lorraine Baines' mum, wasn't she, in it? That's right, when he goes back.
Yeah.
So Martin McFly's nan.
Yeah. She was also in Footloose and Stand By Me. She plays the main butler Chance's mum in Stand By Me.
She was in quite a lot of stuff around about that time. I did recognise, I remember when I see films, she was in quite a lot of stuff. I never knew her name, but like, yeah, she popped up. But then that's another one.
She's got a nice arse as well.
Okay. Well,
no, I noticed a bit when she's going in the kitchen and I thought, she's got quite a nice arse. Oh. Well, this is the thing, I thought she's got a nice arse for an older lady. She's 39.
Really?
39 in this.
Yeah, people did look older then, didn't they, really?
I think it's the short hair. The short curly hair.
So she's younger than Rosie.
She's younger than Rosie. She's like 3 years younger than me.
Yeah, but I suppose people just looked older then. I think people sort of
They dress old.
No, it's not even that. I think it's just they just look younger now. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe people are eating better or looking after themselves more. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of nutrition and stuff
and
like
exercise as well. So I don't think people used to exercise back then.
No, and people drinking and smoking was a lot bigger back then as well, and that has a big toll on you.
Yeah,
you know. I'm not saying she drank or smoked. She might not have done either.
Oh no, she doesn't look bad. I mean, as I say, maybe with different hairstyle and different clothes, she might look completely different. I remember like the Golden Girls. They were all in their 50s and 60s, and people go, "Oh my God, like look how old they look." And it's like, yeah, but if you put like young hairstyles on them and modern clothes, they wouldn't look that bad. It's just you got to think that was the 80s.
Yeah, but they still look kind of old, weren't they?
No, they're not that bad actually. If you think, I know someone done a mock-up and they sort of changed all their hairstyles, and it really massively changes their faces because with a hairstyle it can really change her.
His dad was played by Hoyt Axton, who was in the Black Stallion, Heart Like a Wheel, and he was a singer-songwriter. He wrote the No No song, which I don't think you know.
Is that no, 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 there's no limits.
No, it was no, no, I don't anymore.
I don't know.
Okay. In the original script, he actually bought the Mogwai in Hong Kong for $100, and there was only one rule, and that was keeping it out of the sunlight. That was in the original one anyway. Obviously, they just changed it to Chinatown because it just makes more sense. Sort of some back alley thing. You think he's only like a low rent inventor, isn't he? It's like none of his inventions really work that well. So why would he be travelling to Hong Kong?
Also, he's going to have to travel all the way back from Hong Kong with his Mogwai.
Yeah.
How's he going to get through customs?
No, exactly. And also, that would be a problem for when they introduce the other rules, like eating after midnight, because you've got time zones, haven't you? So when would that count?
Exactly.
Yeah. Corey Feldman. This is one of his earliest ones.
He was in loads of films, wasn't he? I think out of all the young actors, he was in some of the best films. He had, was it Gremlins? He had Goonies, Stand By Me, Lost Boys.
Yeah. In an early draft of the script, he's actually eaten by the Gremlins, and while he's screaming, while they're eating him, his screams are drowned out by carol singers.
Yeah, it was a lot darker, I think, the script before. Yeah, because it was a horror film, I think, originally, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is, but it's like a family horror. It was Spielberg's influence. He came in and said, let's just change a few bits and then we can make it more accessible for everyone. Whereas obviously when Joe Dante wrote it, he wrote, like, there was a scene where the Gremlins all go into a McDonald's. They eat all the people and they leave all the McDonald's food.
Yeah, but you would though, wouldn't you?
You got Dick Miller, who's in Terminator, After Hours, and The Burbs. Jonathan Banks is in it, who's in Free Jack and most famously Breaking Bad. Mike in Breaking Bad. He's a young cop in this. Judge Reinhold, who's in The Santa Claus and Beverly Hills Cop. He was actually, his character was meant to be in it a lot more. Yeah. He had a greater part in it, but they reduced it, and there's actually a deleted scene of him hiding in the bank.
Where are the keys to the vault so I can get you out?
Get out? Why would I want to get out? Oh, I know why you want me to come out. You think, well, now that Mr. Corbin's gone and I'm vice president, I'm going to make you junior vice president and you head teller. Bad chance. You think you can come waltzing in here at any time of the day or night without an appointment? You've got to make an appointment with me now. Do you understand that?
Yeah, he's in Ruthless People. That's how I sort of remember him. He was quite good in that.
The other one.
Yeah, he was quite. That was a big one of his.
Yeah, he was big in the 80s, wasn't he? Yeah. I think when this film actually was advertised...
It was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High as well, I think.
Yeah, with Phoebe Cates, because he's the one perving on her.
Yeah, when she's getting out and she takes... Imagine her taking her top off. That's the famous scene of her taking her top off as she gets out of the swimming pool.
But yeah, he was big in the 80s. And
there was a lot of boobs in the 80s, wasn't it? Everyone had got their boobs out in the 80s.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. No, but it was a real sort of... Like, everyone used to, like... There was... just tits everywhere in 80s like teen films all the time.
Yeah, there was one about a girl, this in the 80s, it's something like One of the Boys or something like that, and she goes undercover.
She pretends to be a boy.
Yeah, in another school. And that's how she reveals, she goes to her mate all the way through, and he's like, my mate's got boobs.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That's enough. Yeah, I forgot all about that one. Yeah, it's just One of the Boys.
Just one of the boys.
I quite like that film. I remember liking it. I have to sort of download that and see. It's like a proper 80s
I
film.
don't think I've ever seen it.
She had,
and she
had, I don't know why.
She cut her hair really short.
Yeah.
What it was is she's writing an article. She writes like an article to be like a press person, and it's like a competition to get their article printed in her school. And her teacher rejects it because she's a girl. So she goes to a different school to try and sell the story, but she sort of goes undercover by cutting all her
it's
hair.
proper 80s, ain't it? I know it's proper 80s. Yeah. I'll have to give that another look. Cause I remember liking it years ago. It might be a bit dated now, but it might be still good. I reckon it's still probably quite good.
I think you'd still enjoy it because I think you go, look, it's a proper slice of 80s. Yeah. It's like you can't replicate certain decades.
No.
Frank Welker and Peter Cullen, two of the voice ones, when they was doing the bar scene with all the Gremlins to get in the mood, they was actually drunk. They was drinking like Budweiser and stuff just so they could do their voices more sort of.
Yeah, a lot of people did use, like they used to go, well, let's just really do it. Like in Sliding Doors when they was all doing with all the rowers, they was all getting pissed in real life, and then the director said, all right, next day you got to be on alcohol-free beer because everyone was getting too drunk. Even though they used a couple of the scenes and said it actually come out quite good, but they don't pay attention.
But I think in a way, it helps because the Gremlins, the bar scene's mental because it's like right bang in the middle, isn't it? And you've got all the Gremlins, the little sort of sketch after sketch of all them doing all their little things. I love it. There was actually the original cut of the film, which was like 2.5 hours long. There was that bar scene goes on for 10 minutes. So they've cut it right down. It's now only about 4 minutes long.
But that'd be quite good though.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Unfortunately, there's loads of stuff. It's of an era when they went, right, we've cut that, and it's gone. They haven't preserved it.
Yeah, they never did they back then, which is a shame because the amount of money they'd make for things now, because they could just do like
Blu-rays and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the set of Kingston Falls is the same one that's used in the Back to the Future film.
Yeah, it's obvious, isn't it? You can see it.
Yeah.
This was before Back to the Future, though, wasn't it? Yeah, it's round about the same time.
Yeah, they're roughly about the same
Universal
time.
lot,
yeah,
isn't it?
So they basically just dressed it up slightly different, but it's the same. Yeah, it's the same set.
And like where you got, I remember when we went on the tour, and they were saying like, there's the Back to the Future tower, and down there is.
Yeah, the clock tower wouldn't be in it, though, would it?
No, but that's. I think there's something else in the film.
Oh, they might have said bank.
It's the same square.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
So you see him.
I'll have to watch it again, knowing that, because I think I don't recognise it properly. Because it's a square with all the buildings all around, isn't it? And the greenery in the middle.
Because the cinema that they're watching Snow White in, because they're all watching Snow White and singing along, aren't they?
Yeah.
And he blows up the cinema, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That's the cinema. No, like in Back to the Future,
he
drives
into.
towards it,
Oh,
isn't
okay.
it? Yeah.
Right. Okay, I get you.
And then when you go past that to the other side, I remember the tour guide saying this is the bit where you see all the Gremlins coming down, because there's that bit with all the Gremlins. It's the only bit of stop animation in the entire film.
Yeah, but they had to do that.
It's like an hour mark where it's sort of stripe goes, and they'll start jumping about and stuff. Because they was going to do all of the Gremlins stop animation. They couldn't decide what to do, whether stop animation or puppets, which they went with, or the other thing they tried was dressing up monkeys.
No,
the monkeys used to sort of pull the faces off.
It worked how it was.
Yeah.
Originally, Stripe and Gizmo were the same character. This changed when executive producer Steven Spielberg insisted one of the Gremlins to be a good guy with whom the audience could identify. Director Joe Dante expresses that this decision was the reason why the film is fondly remembered.
Yeah,
which it makes sense because it is good. Because Gizmo is just like lovely all the way through it, isn't he? So
yeah, but this is why
that means he must have to change then he must have had to change from Mogwai.
If you watch the film, so what's happened is obviously Gizmo gets wet and you have all the other Mogwais come out of him, doesn't he? But they then decided to invent the character Stripe. Who go, oh, he's the leader. So it would have been Gizmo was leading them, playing and mucking about. Yeah. So all the stuff that Stripe does in the film, jumping in the swimming pool, all the way up to the end, the final fight with Billy, that would have been Gizmo, but as a gremlin. So this is why, if you watch the film, the Gizmo puppet, the Gizmo isn't very animated. Because the people who made the Gizmo puppet, the original script, he was only going to be Gizmo up until that point when they eat after midnight. And then he was going to be a gremlin for the rest of the film. So this is why you never see Gizmo sort of walking in the first one.
Yeah.
You just see like him moving about a bit, and when they've done the end bit,
it's a good. I think he's a good. He looks good though, Gizmo. It's
very
basic, but
it's a good. It's a good move.
Really good
because he was
quite expressive, really, with his face, with certain bits. Like when he spits and he looks, he goes like that.
Yeah,
it's sort of quite.
Yeah,
it's quite expressive with such a not that detailed kind of puppet. He does do.
No, but this is it. It was because let me just finish what I was saying. So this is why at the end bit they stick him in a car because they couldn't have him running about in the store. So they thought, let's just stick him in the car that he's driving about. But you know, when you get the close-up of Gizmo and he's really expressive and he's doing all these details, the reason being they made a Gizmo, it was about that big, a big one.
Yeah.
And so when he's got the 3D glasses and stuff, so that they could make it more expressive face. And it's like a deleted, like when it was shown in France, like a trailer, you actually see a human hand coming across his face. And as I said, his face was like the size of like a couple of footballs put together in this human hand.
In Cantonese, Mogwai means devil, demon, or gremlin.
Which again would have explained, like, it's sort of a forewarning for him about to turn into a gremlin.
Yeah.
There was a scene actually, you know, when because you've got the old woman, ain't you, who's like
Mrs. Beasley. Is it Miss Beasley? Mrs. Beasley?
No, that's
Beasley.
That's, ain't that like grown-ups or something?
No, Mrs. Beasley.
Fiddle child?
No, she's not called that. She's called Mrs. Beasley.
Anyway, you know the bit when she goes to bloody Carolers and she goes out, goes to throw the water back, it's all gremlins standing there like singing. That would have been explained because there was actually a scene before that where there's carolers, actual carolers outside her house, and she goes to the door and she tells them to go away. And then she comes back afterwards. But why the gremlins know how to carol singing, because it would cut down and in the snow you see Spike listening to them. Like, so that's how he learns to carol
I suppose
sing.
it's still in the extra cut, isn't it, I suppose?
And you know, Mr. Wing, the Chinese guy that was going to be John Pertwee.
Was it? What Wurzel Gummidge?
Wurzel Gummidge was going to be
I would have loved it even
considered
more
for
then.
Mr. Wing. Yeah, but I mean, would they have done him? Because back then they used to sometimes get people to do impressions of
He would
Chinese
have already
people.
been Wurzel Gummidge by that point.
Yeah, because this was 84.
Yeah.
This is it's probably off the back of Wurzel Gummidge that they considered him, but it would have been a bit dodgy if they'd made him dress as a Chinaman and he was doing like a Chinese impression or something like that.
Probably banned now, I suppose. I'll be cut out of that bit.
Yeah. And in that cinema where they blow it up, there's a double bill is posted. It says "A Boy's Life" and "Watch the Skies," and they was actually the working titles for E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So it's another little Spielberg Easter egg. There's Easter eggs all the way through it. Like you see little E.T. puppet and Warner Brothers.
It's a brilliant film. It's a really good film. One of the studio notes to the director Joe Dante and executive producer Steven Spielberg on seeing the first cut was there was too many gremlins. Spielberg suggested cutting them all out and calling the movie People.
So he's having a strop.
That was
him. Yeah, I don't think he was serious about it. But there's like I know they'd shot as the film.
I think it's good. I like loads of gremlins. I think it's good.
Yeah, the more the better. But at the very end, you know where it's Gizmo. So Spike's shooting at Billy. Gizmo drives in, lands on the blinds, pulls it, and the sunlight kills Spike. Originally, Billy, they shot a scene so he pulls one, and then Billy jumps over, pulls another one, and it's Billy who kills Spike. And Zach Galligan didn't know they'd cut that out until he see it in the cinema. And he was like, "Oh, you cut? I thought I was going to be the hero." And Joe Dante said,
"No, it's nice for Gizmo to be."
The film's called Gremlins, not Billy's adventures in Bedford Falls.
The film was released the same day as Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Which
we had some really good films in the 80s. There was like really interesting, like everyone used to watch, everyone knew, everyone loved. Like you get films now, people go, "Oh yeah, I've heard that," or "I ain't seen that." Not many people sort of. There's loads. There's good films still, but there was loads. Like films that have stood the test of time. Like a lot of the films now that's released, will they still be talked about in 40 years' time? Do you know what I mean?
No, and the interesting thing, where that was released at the same time as Ghostbusters, adjusting for inflation, this is the second highest grossing film not to reach #1 at the box office, because it was Ghostbusters kept it off #1 spot.
Right.
You know what? The highest grossing film not to reach #1 at the box office was Grease. So that was kept off #1 spot.
What Grease was? What with?
I don't know.
I thought Grease would have been the one that everyone was trying to knock off.
Babyface, I think it was.
Babyface, never heard of it.
That porno film with the bloke who looks like Donald Sutherland. The Gremlins was actually a mischievous folklore creature invented by the RAF to explain malfunctions in the machinery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
At least one of Phoebe Cates' screams in the scene at Dory's Tavern is genuine. An enormous cockroach crawled out in front of her during one take.
Oh, God.
Nice. And the Gizmo puppets were particularly frustrating because they were smaller and they broke down more. To satisfy the crew, a scene was included in which the Gremlins hang Gizmo on the wall and throw darts at him. This was included in the list that the crew created, known as the Horrible Things Due to Gizmo list.
Oh, yeah. Right, so, yeah, I think I heard about that. So it's basically because they were so annoyed with him, they said when the Gremlins are being horrible to Gizmo, that's their way of being horrible to Gizmo because they hated the puppet.
Poor little Gizmo.
Yeah. And him just shaking. I love the Gremlins though. I think they're so funny. It's like I was watching this the other day with Mum and they're cackling all the way through it. It's so infectious. They're doing such horrible things to people, killing people. Like when they kill that woman and she goes flying out the window and they're just like that. And it is, I think the Gremlins are like, they're supposed to be like a manifestation of your worst parts of you. You know, so I think the worst parts of human beings, that's what like a Gremlin's like.
Yeah.
You know.
Chris Columbus's script went through a few drafts before the shooting script was finalised. His original version had the Gremlins killing the dog, cutting off the mum's head and tossing it down the stairs. These elements were never shot due to the fact that director Joe Dante and Warner Brothers wanted the movie to be more family orientated.
Yeah. But you could imagine them doing it. It's not like one of those things you go,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Oh, easily.
They're so evil.
But it could easily you could have easily turned it into a horror film.
Mm.
You know, if they weren't so sort of like comical.
Yeah.
You know?
But even then, like if they'd done, because there's been talk of a third one. I personally, if I'd done a third one to make it different from the first and second one, which I like the second one, but that's more sort of extreme. That's sort of like breaking the fourth wall type thing. But I'd do the third one as an horror, but it would still be hilarious because the Gremlins laughing as they do all these horrible things, chopping off people's heads and like.
I don't think you do. I think you need to stick to what people have loved the film for. I don't think you could go into it as a horror
But they
film.
do kill people.
Yeah, but I think people would be expecting it to be like these films, so you can't go out like Terrifier type with it.
I haven't seen that yet, but you know, like they
Have you
like
seen any of the Terrifier films?
no, you know, like the teacher who Billy gives a gizmo to, or gives
Yeah,
a
he gets
Mogwai to,
killed, doesn't
he
he?
gets killed.
Yeah.
You know, the old woman gets killed. The policemen get killed. There's loads of, if you look at the death count, there's loads of people actually get killed in it. The Futtermans originally looked like they'd get killed, didn't they?
But then he comes back into the...
Yeah, they come back in the second one, which loads of people went, oh, that's sort of undone.
No, but you don't actually see him die, like, do you?
No, and actually at the very end of the film, out of the first one, you know when it's got a news report, if you listen, it says, we're going to the hospital to talk to Mr. Futterman. So they
so he
did
wasn't
establish
killed,
that
yeah.
he'd survived.
After watching Tim Burton's earlier short films, executive producer Steven Spielberg considered him to direct this movie. He decided against it, however, because at the time Burton had never directed a full-length feature movie. He would have done quite good with it.
Yeah.
Because he's got quite a unique look, hasn't he? I mean, I only see Edward Scissorhands for the first time the other day because you and Lily was talking about it, and that's a really good film.
Mm.
I mean, I'm a bit late to the party there. What was it, in the 90s?
I think it was 1990. Yeah.
Yeah, so 34 years later, but I got there in the end.
Just wait till you see Terminator 2. That's really good.
I've seen Terminator 2.
Oh, okay.
The movie...
You can say Steven Spielberg each time. You ain't got to say executive producer.
Yeah, but I'm just reading what's on there, so I say it and then it's too late to say it.
Christmas carolers. I hate Christmas carolers. Screechy voiced little blue sniffers. I warned you, Brad! What are they?
Mrs. Deagle. What did I say?
Mrs. Deagle.
What did I say that was? Beasley.
Mrs. Beasley. Mrs. Beasley's from something else. The PG-13 rating was partly invented because of this film. It was this and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom both came out the same year. See, another great film came out that year. but because they was so graphic, they was like, we can't give this a PG rating. And Spielberg, who was involved in both of them, was saying, yeah, but I don't want you to give it like an R rating, so no one can watch it.
Yeah, because the youngsters loved it.
Yeah.
And youngsters wouldn't have been able to see it because it is quite scary for weak little kids, you know, like but most quite hardcore in the 80s, weren't they? Most kids weren't really scared of stuff.
Some were like...
Yeah, but the majority wouldn't be scared of things like this. I think most people was quite sort of...
Yeah.
They were a bit tougher.
But then, yeah, so the PG-13 was invented in America, and eventually they brought over the 12A in this country in 1989. And that was really pushed forward because of Batman. Again, that was one where there was deaths in it, and they thought, we can't really have it as a PG. We don't want to have it as a 15 because we lose half the audience.
It was originally planned for Christmas release, which they should have done, really, because it probably would have been... It wouldn't have had Indiana Jones and Ghostbusters to contend with then.
No.
And it would have been a lot better. And it's also a Christmassy film.
Yeah.
It's just they wanted to rush it through because of that, which is silly, because even though it done well, it would have stood out on its own. It wouldn't have had any competition there.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, when you watch the film, bearing in mind that think of it in the state of it being a Christmas film, it's obvious. You watch all the way through, it's got Christmas songs, they're talking about Christmas, it's on Christmas Eve, he's a Christmas present to his son and all this stuff. But I think where it wasn't released at Christmas, people don't automatically think of it as a Christmas film.
Yeah.
Whereas with Christmas films, I think it would have made more money in the long run because it would have had every year. They would have gone, oh, that Christmas classic.
Yeah, I don't put it down as a Christmas film, even though it is all set in Christmas.
There was a shot, they you know, like with the mum actually is one of the most successful killers in it because she kills...
I like the way she kills them all. The microwave, the blender.
She has the blender. She
fire,
stabs...
poker.
Well, she stabs one to death, didn't she?
Yeah.
That one who she stabs to death...
She cuts one's head off, doesn't she? With a sword. Oh, no, it's him, isn't it?
He does it, yeah. She stabs one to death, who's chucking plates at her, and then one behind her starts chucking things, and she sprays him, and he pushes him in the microwave, switches the microwave on, and he explodes. But there was a scene, you know, when she's stabbing that one, he's then trying to pull the knife out of himself as he's dying, he's squirming. And they shot that, but they thought, oh, that's too gruesome. But if you watch the scene again, when she's doing him with the microwave, you can see him in the background trying to pull the knife out, the other gremlin.
Okay.
Yeah. I never noticed that, so I read it up about it, and I thought, that can't be the case, there's no way I missed that. And I watched it again on YouTube, just that one clip, and I thought, oh yeah, look, he's trying to pull the knife out.
If you think, back in the 80s when we'd watch stuff, it would be not really good quality videos, so you wouldn't really look at background stuff. I mean, it wasn't like sort of like 4K
No.
and all that kind of stuff back then. Do you know what I mean? So that's the probably reason why we did miss a lot of background stuff, because it was like there was videotapes, and even tellies back then weren't that clear.
No.
Weren't proper clear.
But I also think it's where the actual shot, you're looking at her leaning towards, she's on one side, see like I am now, spraying the gremlin, and it's right in the background, see like how big she is. Just in the background, like squirming a bit, moving the knife.
Phoebe Cates recalls hearing some studio concerns that after Fast Times at Ridgemont High, she might not be wholesome enough to play Kate. Joe Dante had seen the movie and felt that she was awfully wholesome.
What,
Yeah,
Fast?
well,
Yeah. I haven't seen it, Fast Time.
you know the bit with her taking her top off.
Yeah, I know.
That's it
of
there.
it.
Hang on. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
That's her there. Just about to take her top off.
Why don't you have it with her
No.
taking her top off? See, the scene that she stands out most for in this is the one where she talks about her dad dying.
Yeah.
And it's right sort of like about 2/3 of the way through, isn't it? And they're in the bank, and she mentions again that she don't like Christmas because she'd mentioned it earlier, and goes, why? And she explains that story about her dad climbing into the chimney, falling, breaking his neck, and there's like a few days pass, and then they've noticed a smell, so they've opened up, the fireman opened up the chimney, expected to find a dead cat or something, and instead it was her dad.
Just as a Santa Claus,
Yeah.
and he'd fallen and broke his neck.
Yeah. And it's
Quite dark.
It's very dark, and it's very sort of
Sad.
yeah, it's really sad, but it's also like how Joe Dante was intending it. So, well, if you think about it, it's a bit ridiculous, a man climbing into a chimney and stuff like that. But the studio really wanted them to remove that scene. They said it's too depressing, it brings the whole tone down, and he had to fight tooth and nail just to keep that scene in it.
Yeah.
They then parody that scene in part 2, didn't they?
Can't give up now. Washington didn't give up. Lincoln didn't get
Please.
What's wrong?
Oh, don't mention Lincoln. Something terrible happened to me one year on Lincoln's birthday. I was 6 or 7, and I remember I had the day off from school, and Mom had let me go to the park. She'd made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I was going through that peanut butter and jelly sandwich phase. And this man with this
Honey,
beard and a hat looked just like Abe Lincoln.
Honey, I really don't think
Except
we've
for
got
the
time for
raincoat.
this now, you know?
I remember, oh, God. He said, hello, little girl.
Honey, come on.
And don't they sort of take the piss out though this time round? Is it like a sort of piss take? Oh, she's going off again, sort of.
Yeah. Do you remember in Spain where we had the little gizmo puppets?
Yeah, really cheap crap, weren't they?
Yeah. But they...
Everyone wanted them.
Yeah.
Oh, that was 1990.
Yeah.
So Gizmo, so it's been out for a while.
Yeah, but they this is the thing, like even the Gremlins, see, like I've got a Gremlin on my jumper. Even the Gremlins, they made little plushes of them. And they'd say like there'd be babies with this little gremlin in its cot and everything.
This was the 4th biggest grossing film of 1984. 1984, so that's exactly 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it say what the other ones are? Obviously,
No.
Ghostbusters was one of
And
them.
also Indiana Jones will be the other.
I think so, yeah. Back to the Future?
No, it's 85.
That was 85, was it? Yeah, so this was shot before Back to the Future then.
Phoebe Cates says kissing Zach Galligan was like kissing your brother, and Galligan blames a set visit from Steven Spielberg for making him feel nervous. As I recall, his main concern was to make sure Gizmo was in the shot, says director Joe Dante.
But Spielberg knew what he was doing, especially in the 80s. He had like a Midas touch on films because he was executive producer on Back to the Future as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So he'd find, because he was so popular and he had all these great films under his belt by that point, like E.T. and Jaws and Close Encounters and stuff like that, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, he was given so much stuff, that's when he started passing it out to other people.
Yeah.
But he'd still have a big influence. He'd come in and say, no, Gizmo is the star. Trust me.
Yeah.
So you've got to sort of have more of him. Because if you think about it, after all the Gremlins, all the Mogwai turn into Gremlins, Gizmo does nothing for the whole film.
No.
All he is there doing reaction shots, being in Billy's backpack and stuff. That's because they had nothing for him to do in the whole script.
It ain't about him then, is it? It's
No,
about the Gremlins.
and it's literally right at the very end where he gets in the car and saves the day.
Corey Feldman was added to this movie when Steven Spielberg dropped his character from E.T. In both stories, he's the best friend of the boy who has the creature.
Oh.
So he's meant to be in E.T., but because he dropped him from that, he gave him the role in this.
He would have been even younger then for E.T. Because in this he looks really young, Corey Feldman.
Yeah, but he probably would have still been roughly the same age as Elliot from E.T., wouldn't he?
Probably, just about. But yeah, he was. I think the same year as this, he was in Friday the 13th as well. Friday the 13th, I think it was part 4.
Oh, I can't remember.
He shaves all his head off and he pretends to be...
I think I stopped watching Friday the 13th after a couple. I'd see the odd one every now and again. I didn't see them consecutively. I didn't see to watch them each when they come out. I think they got very samey.
No.
That's one of the franchises, I think, that didn't really... It's a successful franchise because they're obviously there's so many films, but it ain't one that is... It's a very iconic character with a hockey mask and all that, but it wasn't ever in the same sort of like Michael Myers league, Freddy Krueger, you know?
No, but this is the thing. I think, my theory on that is Jason Voorhees with the hockey mask is the most iconic horror character out of them big three, but they've never made a really great Friday the 13th film. No. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3 are brilliant.
There's got to be a good one. Surely there's got to be a good one.
The first Halloween is brilliant.
Yeah.
But no, there's some that are okay, but it's just, by that point, the 80s knew what they was doing. Let's do another slasher, because people were just eating it up.
Well,
they
it was really big for horror in the 80s. I mean, there was some like crap, but people love it now because it was so crap.
Well, even to this day, people churn out so many crap horrors, and people the horror community is the most faithful community. This is why we should do more horror podcasts.
Yeah.
Because they will invest in horror films and they'll relish if it's crap. They'll go, oh my god, you got to watch this horror film. It's so crap.
Because it's crap, yeah.
You know, there's some lady that go, oh, this one's great. You got to watch this. Whereas you don't find that for any other genre. You wouldn't watch a comedy. Go, oh, you got to watch this comedy. It's so boring.
The reason Billy hangs out with a 13-year-old is because Corey Feldman was cast before Billy was aged up.
Oh, so
there's a bit of a gap between their friendship, isn't there?
Yeah.
It don't seem weird though.
No, I mean I used to hang out with older boys as well. When I was a kid, I hang out with David and John. You know, and that was
because they were more George's age, weren't they? And George was a couple of years older than you.
Yeah, but they was even older than George. They were like about a year or two older than George.
Oh, were they? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so the age gap between me and them was slightly bigger. I know you'd hang out with like the kids who were younger than me as well. It wasn't a big deal back then. But that's interesting. So I guess Billy's character probably would have been more like the boy in E.T. You know, a much younger boy. I wonder why they aged him up. Maybe it was because of the Phoebe Cates thing. They thought, oh,
Yeah, because they've got to have a relationship sort of thing going on.
yeah, and she's got to work in a bar, and then he has a job in the bank, so it just
Yeah,
spirals.
I've never noticed it until I just read that out. I never really sort of noticed and thought, yeah, why is he hanging around with a young boy? But it didn't seem.
No, but again,
okay,
it's not that big a deal because I think it's more on the young boy's part. He goes around and goes, oh, this cool older kid, let me go look at his comics and stuff.
Yeah.
And he says, oh wow, look at this little mogwai you've got, you know. Because it's his fault that they multiplied in the first place, isn't it? Corey Feldman. He knocks over the water
on him, yeah.
And
but then again, if you hadn't done that, there wouldn't be a film, would there?
no,
So
it would have just been
good on you,
Gizmo.
Corey Feldman.
It would have been one of those things that go, nothing ever happens when you break them rules. Oh, no one's broken them rules.
Yeah.
I like part 2 as well.
I like part 2. I like the girl.
Yeah.
Greta, is it Greta?
I don't know.
Did she even have a name?
Yeah. Greta Gremlin.
And don't she she makes out with like a bloke in it?
She gets married to him in the end, I think, yeah. They've got some little gremlin
That's so
babies.
weird. I see a funny sketch by Key and Peele where it's got like it's meant to be like them pitching Gremlins 2, and this guy comes in and he's like going, right, just tell me any idea, and one of them goes like, oh, an electric gremlin, great, we're going to do that. A spider gremlin, yeah, we'll do that. A girl gremlin.
Do you think she's supposed to be trans? Because they're all boys, aren't they? All of them.
No,
There's no girls.
no, because it gave her boobs.
Yeah, but she... Oh, yeah, okay. No, I didn't know if that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, surely it doesn't matter because I don't think they've got genitalia because they multiply with water.
I bet all the other gremlins was trying to get hold of her then.
Yeah. Although there's also, I mean, the gremlins themselves have got human personalities in a way. It's like that, the scene in the first one when they're in the bar and they're all drinking and smoking, isn't they? And one of them sort of flashes Phoebe Cates and everything. I think that's great, the bar scene. I think that's the highlight of the film. It's
and
great
the
film.
dancing bit with the leggings,
Yeah,
and it goes
flash
upstairs
cards.
and down and up and down and then spins on his back. And
Yeah. It's so detailed. I mean, the amount of the puppetry in it is amazing, considering how small they are. For them, like for the cinema scene, they literally have hundreds of puppeteers on the floor under the seats, making them all sing along to
and all got to do it at the right time. If one's out of sync, that's it. Cut. Right, start again.
Yeah.
As I say, I think we were spoilt for choice, really. I think 80s was really good for being a youngster.
Yeah.
With lots of young films. You know, we had a lot of good films for youngsters. There's so many.
Yeah.
I mean, you could easily, I bet I'd easily be able to roll off 50.
Go on then.
You know? I'm not going to sit and do 50 now. Don't put me on the spot like that. But there's so many films that you can go, right, well, there's like all the teen ones, all the young ones. Actually, there is. There's like all the John Hughes, all like the like Stand By Me's and Gremlins, Back to the Futures, and like the musicals like Annie and things. There's
the Indiana Jones films, the Star Wars films.
You know, Ghostbusters, and there was so many films.
E.T.
Yeah, there was so many films in the 80s.
And it's such iconic sort of little characters and moments that came out of the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
I'm really glad. I am so glad I was able to grow up in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because I was like in 1980.
Yeah.
6, 7.
I think it's like you know, like back in the day, we'd be envious of our parents for growing up in the 60s. You know, and
I think
the
people
50s and 60s
because the 80s has had a big revival, and like things like Stranger Things, I think really sort of like catapulted the 80s back out there, and a lot of the youth of today look back and go, oh, the 80s, and then you realise, oh, I was part of something. I was part of that of the 80s, and I didn't realise at the time because I was just a child going through this. It's only when you look back at it and you go, yeah, it was a really good time to grow up in the 80s. I loved it.
But see, like in the 80s, I think that was one of the main appeals of Back to the Future, was it was going back to a time which then people were like, oh, I'd love to have been about in the 50s.
Yeah.
Gives them a chance to go back to the 50s. I can't see it happening again. I think the best decades have passed us now. You know, it's like the most romantic decades.
Well, no, so the thing is, I think now technology is it's all technology wise now. It's like there was lots of individual. There was a lot of art, and it was all natural art, and people used to use their artistic skills for will it be music or in film and special effects and stuff. People used to think and use their brains, where a lot of people now just use computers to do stuff. I don't think people need to. I'm not saying there's not talented people around. There is, but a lot of people don't have to try as hard because you could a program can do that for you. You know, you can CGI something and go, okay, that looks good.
And there's too much stuff now as well, because it all just becomes hodgepodge, all moulds into one. You know, like imagine like you got paint and you got two different paints and mixed them together. It's a nice normal colour. Eventually, once you mix all the paints together, it's just dull and black, and it's like there's nothing here. Yeah. Whereas, you know, like you were saying about the other day, the biggest ratings thing in this country was EastEnders when Deno.
No, the biggest soap ever to add in our country that had the most ratings was the EastEnders episode with Den and Angie with the divorce papers. But that's because there was 3 channels then, or maybe 4 channels. There was 4 channels, but everyone would be watching the same things. Now people don't. No, people record things. People watch them on catch up, or people binge them. Yeah, it ain't the same. It's like I used to love the fact that I remember years ago when Fools and Horses Christmas specials would be on. You know, everyone in the country is sitting there watching that at that time because they didn't have Sky, we didn't have all that, and people had video recorders, but no one sat and recorded stuff. They would sit and they would watch that, and you know that everyone is laughing at the same time, and that is just such a lovely feeling. But that will never ever happen again. No, because there's not that many people on the same page.
It's called
people would do it later.
Yeah, it's called a water cooler moment. So it's one of those things, you'd watch something and everyone in the next day, they'd be standing by the water cooler go, oh my God, did you watch that last night? Of course I did. Whereas you can't do that now, because you went, if someone goes, oh, did you watch Dexter last night? No, I watched Breaking Bad. What about you? No, I was watching I was watching this. I was watching that. And it's just too much. Yeah. So we can't relate anymore.
That will never ever come back.
Yeah.
And that is I'm glad that I lived in an era where I remember all that stuff, because that will never ever come back. Like before technology took over, don't get me wrong, there was computers in our secondary school. I think we had computers, but none of the teachers knew how to use them. No. So we turned the computer on, and I think by the time it loaded up, the lesson was finished. So that they was winging it, and it's like we didn't really, like when I was a kid, when I used to go to the pub with Dad, like in the 70s and all that. It was Space Invaders was the computer game, and that was brilliant. I used to love it, but that was enough for me.
And this is the thing, everyone knows Space Invaders, don't they? Because it was the only one.
Yeah, there was that, and then Pac-Man, I think, was the second one to come out. That came out in the 80s, but Space Invaders was the only thing, really, I think, that I can remember. And I used to love it. It was like, oh, brand new. But I was easily pleased. No, show that to a child now, and they'd be like, oh, so boring, and they would complete it in about a minute. But it was really good at the time, you know, and it was enough. It's like, I think you're giving too much now. I think there's a lot, but I do feel that we are the end of a generation where we remember life before technology did take over, because it has taken over. It's ruined market stalls and shops, and because it's easy just to go on Amazon and press, oh, I'll buy that. And music even, I remember we grew up in a lovely era when Madonna came out, when George Michael... That's not the same. Yeah, so like in the 80s we had like sort of like Madonna, we had like when Whitney Houston come out, when George Michael come out. So we had some really sort of interesting, colourful characters and lots of like all these artists. It was a really fun time to grow up. I love the 80s.
Yeah, whereas now that people go, oh, you don't know Biff Biff or something, and I go, oh, that's...
But they're all like, there's like Dua Lipa and that what's that one, that Rihanna, Ariana Grande and whatever, all these, and I'm like,
sounds like coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but see, like, you will never find someone who is as big as, say, Michael Jackson.
No, and Prince.
Yeah, but
you know?
specifically Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson was someone who was known the world over.
Yeah.
He'd turn up at a country and everyone went crazy. Even if you didn't know his music, you knew who Michael Jackson was.
Yeah.
You would never find that now. No artist. I don't care if it's Taylor Swift.
So you've got like the likes of, what is it, like Adele, and it's just very samey, and it's very...
It's nothing exciting.
No. It's like they're manufactured. They're like pop idol type of people. They're like sort of like, you know, that kind of like manufactured
Well, I wouldn't
bands
say they
and
look
artists.
like... They don't look like Popeye.
No, you know, like, what's it? You know, like, what's the thing with Simon Cowell?
Oh, yeah.
That's not called Popeye. X Factor. They're like all like churned out. Don't get me wrong, they're all good, and it's just something more organic about the 80s, where, and before that, in the 70s and 60s, even better, you know, like fucking some amazing bands. But, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's good ones, but I think it's just diluted a lot.
Yeah.
But that's probably my age. My age group, younger people will be going, I don't know what I'm talking about, which, I mean, I suppose that's the thing about, you know, I'm protective over my decades and all that, I suppose, really. But anyway.
Go on.
IMDb, this got 7.3 out of 10.
I think it should have been higher.
Yeah.
Just slightly higher. But about 8, I'd put it close to 8, because it's so original and so sort of fun and fast-paced. And anyway.
And the Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it 86%.
That's good.
And the audience gave it 78%. Now, I thought the audience would probably give them more than the critics.
It might be one of those things where some people's sensibilities, like parents, go, oh, my kid was watching that and one got put in the microwave. Now he put my cat in the microwave and it's dead.
I remember when microwaves first come out and a woman put her dog in the microwave to dry it off. Fucking some people are so stupid, aren't they?
God.
Right. The budget of this film, it costs...
I shouldn't laugh, but I was just thinking of the microwave scene in Gremlins. There you go, fluff it.
Right, it's cost $11 million to make.
That's cheap.
Yes, for all the puppets and all that as well. That's really cheap. If you think, and all the the animatronic, all the animation and all that kind of stuff, and all the puppeteers, very cheap. And it made 212.9 million.
Wow.
So that's a really good return, isn't it? But absolutely love this film, and it's still good to this day. Another brilliant 80s film. So
another brilliant Christmas film.
Yeah.
So we've got one more Christmas film to do, Ben.
Yes, and I'm doing this one because it's our mother's, she loves this film.
Bridget Jones.
No, funny enough, she loves Bridget Jones.
Home Alone.
No, Last Christmas. Because she absolutely loves, she loves George Michael. She loves George Michael more than all her kids. Like when she talks about George, she goes, yeah, my George, even though her son's called George. She goes, no, not that George, my George, when she's going, meaning George Michael. But yeah, Last Christmas we're going to do, because I don't think many people have reviewed that. And I'd like to give that a review, because I quite like that film as well. And
Woke Christmas.
It is quite wokey, and I'm sure you're going to be sitting there doing the same as what I've done to you at Bulworth.
Well, I won't do it.
You are going to do it.
No,
it's
Mum
going to be
could
your
do it.
mum. Yeah, but mum's going to do it, but you're going to do it as well. So you're going to sit and do it, because mum ain't going to want to talk about it the whole time. She's just going to dip in and out. So you're going to have to do it, and you can sit there and put your opinion on, and it gives you an opportunity to watch the film again, doesn't it?
I'd remember it. I ain't got to watch it.
No, you have got to watch it.
Well, you need to watch Gremlins.
Yeah, I've seen Gremlins about 100 times.
I've seen Last Christmas 100 times.
All right, okay. No, you haven't, liar. Anyway, yeah. So thank you very much for listening to this podcast. What are you looking like that for? Because you've got to watch Last Christmas.
Yeah. But
you like her. You like her. She's in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I know, but the appeal of that wears off soon after a while when all the bollocks happens.
Listen, it's a good film. It can be a little bit wokey, but I like it. It's
Listen,
good.
Don't worry. You say why it's good.
Yeah, we're gonna.
And I'll just sit there pulling a face.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to sort of chip in. You're gonna have to sort of review it and say about what you love about it and all that, because as I say, Mum.
I don't love anything about it.
I
don't love anything about that film. I like George Michael songs. That's the extent of it. And she's quite hot in Game of Thrones. And that's. Right. I'll watch it again.
So we're gonna do that, because it's also nice to do a Christmas film that people haven't that not a lot of people have reviewed.
Oh, right.
They do like. So. Okay, right. So thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Have a happy Christmas. Bye bye.
Happy Christmas.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Like, subscribe, and share.